Guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nora. Thank you so much for watching. Before we jump into today's video, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, follow your girl on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, because you already know we're growing the family across all platforms. Hi family, hi cuzzos, long time no talk, long time no see. Well, maybe not long time no see, depending on the last time you watched my video, but embarrassingly enough, it has been far too long since we have filmed a girl talk video. It has been a really, really long time, but honestly, I wanted to be really intentional about the next girl talk video that I did. I wanted to make sure that if I'm gonna sit here and talk y'all ears off, that it's something of substance and hopefully something that is actually beneficial to you all. Just to kind of give a quick little recap where I've been, because I know the videos have kind of been a little bit inconsistent up and down. If you're not keeping up on my channel, I most recently took a mental leave from work, a leave of absence for about 4 weeks. I recently went back to work maybe 2 weeks ago at this point, and a lot has been going on. Some things I will openly share and some things I won't, because it doesn't only involve me. But you know, a lot has been going on, and I was at a place where I knew it was time to take a step back, because I was just kind of on this downward spiral. I could feel myself already hitting the wall, but hitting the wall so much that I was literally going to just crash. The burnout was real. I feel like the burnout honestly was real for quite a few months, but it took some time for me to finally just have that conversation with self and step back and again realize you've got to take a step back. You've got to take a break. So I'm sure you all obviously have seen the title and can probably tell a little bit. I wanted to just kind of sit down and talk about this idea of burnout, and specifically with millennials, your younger millennials, so maybe our later 80s, 90s babies, and honestly for all ages, and even maybe our Gen Zers, but just this idea of burnout. Why are you guys burnt out? Why is this generation so tired? And then I think a lot of us not knowing how to process this burnout and honestly feeling a little bit more like failures. Sorry ahead of time if the lighting is going in and out. Y'all know we are filming with both natural light and my little ring light here, so we're gonna try to do our best to make sure the lighting stays pretty consistent. But yeah, I feel like there's just this misunderstanding, or this whole idea that if you are in your 30s, late 20s or whatever, there's no reason why you should feel burnt out. You're still young. And then again, let me not project and speak for everyone, but I feel like a lot of us, instead of kind of thinking of it as burnout or maybe needing to take a break, we internalize it and we kind of beat ourselves up and feel like failures. And that was even me. I unfortunately am a type A perfectionist person, sometimes to a fault. I am constantly beating myself up. Well, let me not say constantly, okay? I definitely love myself and give myself grace, but I oftentimes am beating myself up and making myself feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm always feeling like I'm juggling a lot of things, and I'm worried about one thing dropping and not stepping up to the plate the way that I need to, not performing, at 110% across the board. I am human, I'm not a robot, and I constantly have to remind myself girl, you are doing not only the best that you can do, but you're crushing it. You're doing a really, really great job. And I wanted to kind of just again, open up the conversation about this whole idea of burnout and maybe why so many of us feel this way, right? So let me take y'all back a little bit, right? I have been working since I was 14 years old, okay? I will be 33 this year. So 19 years of working. And again, we get some the older folks, we get, your Gen, what generation are they? Gen X, I think they are, your Gen Xers and your baby boomers who are well, in my day, I started working at 7 and 8 years old. Okay, child labor laws. All this comparison, and it's never to take away from them and saying that they didn't work hard. However, I think a lot of times, and again, I'm not generalizing, but some folks, some of the older generation, older folks, I think fail to realize and take into account just how different it is in today's day and age, and how different it is to navigate, you know, just life every day as a person. So not only have a lot of us been working for a really, really long time, right? A lot of us have been working for a long time. The amount of external stimuli that we have to deal with, the amount of external factors that we have to deal with nowadays, in my opinion, I think is very, very different. Number one, the obvious one, social media, okay? But when we can even backtrack it from there, the internet, okay? So as a millennial, you know, I lived in a time where we didn't have internet, but then I also lived through the time where you had to get your internet through the mail. I also then lived through the time to see, you know, how cell phones obviously have continued to progress. And now, I mean, you've got just about everything you need right here in your hand at any time. So living through all of those transitions is a lot. And I can say I have definitely seen how much the overexposure, how much like the easy access, how much social media has definitely taken a toll on our entire society. I think some of us maybe, you know, have an easier time navigating it. For some of us, it's a little bit more difficult. Some people can tune things out a little bit more. Some people, it doesn't really affect them. But overall, I definitely think when you think about all the external factors and the external stimuli that we have to deal with, it makes perfect sense, right? Okay, I'm definitely, I mean, let me not self-diagnose here because I'm not a doctor, but hyperactive, okay? My attention, baby, I'm all over the place, purple squirrel, 17 million things going on at the same time. I know for a fact my cell phone doesn't help. I know for a fact social media doesn't help. But it's just kind of the nature of the game, and it's kind of just the nature of what our society is like. So you take that all into account, and I definitely think that adds to it. So now having access to this, and then you're able to get like an inside peek into other people's lives, right? Granted, I know we all say social media isn't super real, it's very curated, people share what they want to share, X, Y, and Z, whatever you want to say, but at the end of the day, we are getting inside glimpses into each other's lives at a level and at a rate that isn't honestly healthy, okay? There are just sometimes I sit here and I'm like, I shouldn't know this about you. I should not know this about you. And this is coming from someone who vlogs and shares my life, shares my everyday life, takes you guys through my routines, my home, the things I buy. So I'm also, you know, adding to it, but we are living in a society where we are just shoving so much of our own lives into each other's faces that I think that also adds into the pressures of comparison, you know, into the pressures of this hustle culture that we just cannot seem to escape, right? You sit there, you're looking at your peers that might be the same age, you went to the same schools, you graduated around the same time, and now all of a sudden you all are supposed to be on the same timeline, right? I am definitely guilty of it. I have found myself scrolling on Instagram, and it's the proposals, the weddings, the babies, and then you add on, you know, the fact of my age, again, like I said, being in my early 30s, the pressures of that. Now you find yourself just kind of comparing and feeling like I'm not doing enough, I'm not on the right timeline and right schedule. Take it outside of social media, right? Take it outside of even comparing your personal lives, and then you go into the everyday workplace. You have this whole conversation of, you know, you need to either be doing the 9-to-5ers versus the entrepreneurs, and, you know, everybody needs to have 7 different forms of income, and you need to be making money over here, making money over here, make money in your sleep. If you're, baby, even going through that whole little spiel right there, I'm tired. I'm effing tired, I'm exhausted, okay? And granted, some people love that. Some people thrive on that. That's, you know, for some people, entrepreneurship was their calling. For some people, climbing the corporate ladder and getting that corner office and getting those 3 letters is, you know, what they strive for. I feel like, unfortunately, as a society, we're really pressuring people to have it all figured out like yesterday, right? And, you know, as someone, again, who is, you know, in her early 30s, still navigating life, I'm not married, I don't have kids, I sometimes feel those pressures as well. Now I do recognize, and at least for me, again, let me not project because y'all are perfect, I am a type A person. So I do understand too, and I will say, at least for me, some of those pressures come from me. Again, I think it's just because I have such a high standard for myself. I have set such a high bar for myself. I do recognize that a lot of those like pressures come from me. Whether it's intentional or unintentional, sometimes we can be our own toughest critic. And again, as someone who is pretty, type A, I have recognized through the years that I definitely can sometimes be my toughest critic. I can sometimes be super, super hard on myself. But I'm saying all of this to say, I don't think for a lot of us, we're failing. We're not failures, okay? We're not failing. I think a lot of us are doing the best we can. And to be honest, I think a lot of us are doing even more than just our best. I think a lot of us are crushing it. I also think at the same time, some of us are dealing with burnout. I actually might even go out on a limb and say a lot of us are dealing with burnout, okay? We went through a pandemic where obviously it was the first time in, our entire lifetimes going through something like this. And then you're navigating, this hybrid remote world where you're feeling the pressures of making sure you're still performing as a Black woman, overperforming, okay? Let's keep it a buck, always feeling like, okay, I know my 100% unfortunately is still not enough. So I do, again, realize a lot of these external factors are a part of it. And I think when you add that into it, in reality, a lot of us are burnt out. A lot of us are burnt out. Unfortunately, a lot of us, it does take until, we do spiral or we do crash or, our bodies kind of start rejecting things and attacking itself and trying to find signals and ways to tell us like, hey, slow down, you're doing too much and you need a break, for us to realize that we are indeed dealing with burnout. So diving in a little bit more into my own kind of like personal journey for realizing that my body definitely was, shutting down and, I was getting a little bit more sick, or my eating habits were a little bit different. My skin was acting out in ways that it never did before. I wasn't sleeping properly. My appetite was all over the place. I was a lot more irritable too. I mean, I can get a little testy anyways. And, sometimes I might just be like, my cycle coming on. Nah, baby girl. I was definitely being a bitch at times when I didn't need to be. I was definitely dealing with brain fog, just too much going on up here that it was starting to affect so many different aspects of my life, both personal, with friendships, family, romantic, work, that I was like, yo, Norah, this is not you. This is not how you operate. And it took for, unfortunately, some outside folks, in my life to also recognize that and also tell me like, hey, you don't seem like yourself. Something feels off. I was forgetting things that, at least for me, I'm a pretty organized person. I'm usually really on top of my things. So I was forgetting things that I normally don't forget. And I realized that not only one, was I exhausted, but I had probably been on this kind of like burnout, train, unfortunately, for a while. And it took maybe 5 or 6 months for me to really like realize that and wake up. But I realized that like I had been beating myself up for quite some time when all I really needed to do, and I don't want to say all I needed to do because again, it's not like it's super, super easy. It is tough. It is hard to slow down. It is very difficult to put a pause on things when you're constantly, comparing yourself or feeling like you have a timeline and you have to meet certain goals by certain deadlines. But that was exactly what I needed to do. I needed to hit pause, okay? I needed to hit pause. I needed to take a break. I needed to take a step back and take care of me. I needed it, okay? This girl needed it. I was falling apart and I was definitely getting to a place that if I didn't do something soon, it was definitely gonna get really bad. And not to obviously get super, super dark here, but something needed to be done soon. You obviously don't want to completely fall apart at work or completely ruin relationships that, again, if you had taken the time to put that pause on what you can. Obviously, I know for some of us, there are certain responsibilities that, unfortunately you don't have the luxury to just put a pause on, but slowing down and taking that time to take internal inventory, as I always like to say, and making sure that you are prioritizing yourself. So that's exactly what I did. Fortunately enough, I work for a company where I was able to take a leave of absence. Very easy to do. I didn't have to get super personal either. Just kind of, reached out to my manager and went through the steps and process there and got it approved, and took that space. And it was truly an unplugged leave of absence, not checking emails, not worried about anything, and just taking that time and space to do whatever I needed to really focus on myself. I am a huge advocate for mental health. I am a huge advocate for getting the help that you need. So I definitely made a point to, go back to therapy and really prioritize that and, up my sessions. I've always been someone who has spoken to a therapist, or I shouldn't say always, but the last several years of my life, but upped that a little bit to really make sure that I was prioritizing that and making sure I was taking care of me, okay? Taking care of me, making sure I was doing what I needed to do to take care of myself. So since coming back from my leave, I've been doing a lot of reflection, both on my own, but also with my therapist. So I wanted to just kind of share a couple things, again, looking back, that I can now identify and see as like signs that I was definitely dealing more so with burnout and wasn't just failing, miserably at life, which again, for me, oftentimes that's what I was telling myself. I was telling myself that I was just failing, I was dropping the ball, and I wasn't doing enough. But again, a couple signs, that I look back and I realized was, again, the fogginess, like the fogginess in my brain, forgetting things that I normally wouldn't forget. Of course, sometimes we are human, you might forget things, you might not have the best memory, but I was a lot more forgetful than I normally am. Another thing that I definitely noticed was the fatigue, okay? So for me, I'm not someone who takes naps during the day. I usually am pretty good about my sleep schedule, but it was like no matter how much sleep I got, I was exhausted. The irritability was also another thing. Like I said, I can definitely be someone who's a little bit, feisty at times, but the snappiness and just like the lack of patience that I had with things that normally wouldn't bother me was another way that I was able to kind of like really, looking back now, was like, girl, no, you were tired, you were running on fumes, and you were definitely burnt out. I also realized looking back that even though I felt like I wasn't doing enough, I was constantly adding more and more onto my plate. So I was constantly trying to find more and more ways to satisfy that thought in my brain that I wasn't doing enough. Does that make sense? Hopefully this makes sense, what I'm sharing here. I know sometimes these videos get a little bit chaotic just because if you're new here, I try not to take notes and just like to kind of talk from the heart and right off the dome. But hopefully, again, like I said, this is all making sense. So I was overwhelming myself even more when I was already dealing with burnout, but again, I didn't realize that, so I was adding so much more on my plate and trying to kind of overcompensate for this feeling that I, was kind of going through. And again, looking back, I didn't need to add more things to my plate. I didn't need to juggle, more kind of like, balls at the same time. I needed to pause and I needed to take a break. That's what I needed. I needed time to pour back into myself, take care of my mental health, slow down, get my body back on track, get my tempo, my system back on track so that I could actually be the best person that I could be and show up the way that I need to. I don't know, maybe just coming off of the leave, this is something that I am really, really passionate about. And again, I've spent a lot of time reflecting and realized that I was beating myself up. Again, not all the time, but I've been really, really tough on myself. And as I kind of go through social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, I a lot of times will come across other folks as well talking about burnout, but then, on the other end will feel like they're not doing enough or they're failing, that it kind of just like, was like this like aha moment in the switch that was like, for one, Norah, you're not the only person dealing with this. You're not crazy for feeling this way. But it made me want to kind of dive in and look a little bit closer and deeper and try to understand, well, why do so many of us feel like this? Why do so many of my peers feel like this? And maybe I can share, my own experience and, what I've been kind of dealing with recently to just let you know that, again, you're not alone, you're not crazy, you're not failing, you are doing the best you can. And burnout is real, okay? Burnout is real. Burnout does not have an age requirement. You don't only have to, have worked for 30 years and have a family and taking care of kids and a spouse and a partner to deal with burnout. Teenagers could deal with burnout. Young adults could deal with burnouts. All generations, I definitely think, could deal with their own version of burnout, right? It might look a little bit different in a high schooler than it might look for, someone with a family or someone a little bit later in life. But I do think burnout is real, and I do think a lot of us deal with burnout. So I go on that long, that long rant to say, take the pauses, Take the leave from work if you can. You know, carve out time and space, whether it's daily, whether it's weekly, however, you know, schedule or cadence works best for you. But carve out that time to make sure that you are grounding yourself, that you are prioritizing yourself, you're prioritizing your mental health, because it is important. And I know for some of us, you might not feel like you have the opportunity to do so. There are a lot of resources out there, a lot of free resources out there that I think a lot of folks could tap into and hopefully seek that help to kind of help you push through that. But again, I cannot reiterate enough that you are not a failure. You're not failing miserably at life. It's a lot. Life just right now is a lot. There's a lot to navigate. There's a lot to take in. There's a lot of stimuli out there. There are a lot of external factors. So burnout is real. Don't beat yourself up. Take that pause, take that leave if necessary. You know, jump back into the things that used to get you really excited, that you used to love. Think of that inner child, think of the things that he or she used to love, and jump back into them. You know, whether it's old things, whether it's new things you want to jump into and try. Take the space, take the time, because burnout is real. Burnout doesn't look one way. Burnout doesn't happen to only one kind of person. That's all I've got for this video. I know I'm so sorry again with the light going in and out. It's actually a beautiful sunny day, but there are quite a bit of clouds, as you can see. My lights are doing the best that they can here to try to combat it, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know sometimes it can be, again, a little bit all over the place, but it was something that was at top of mind, was on my heart. It's something I'm still navigating, so I wanted to at least share it with you all, share it with the family, share it with the cousins. So let's continue the conversation down below. Have you been feeling this? Do you sometimes feel like you're just failing life miserably and can't get it right? Are you feeling like you're burnt out? If you feel comfortable sharing, definitely would love to continue the conversation. And then if so, what are you doing for burnout? What are you doing to kind of combat that? Let's also continue sharing tips down below, sharing words of encouragement. But other than that, you're the ish, okay? You are the ish. I love you all. Thank you so much. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye, y'all.